The stars looked different from inside a cage. Lieutenant pressed his forehead against the cold metal bars and watched the alien sun cast purple shadows across the cell floor. 3 days ago, he had walked into the palace as Earth's representative. Now he was a prisoner waiting to die. The diplomatic mission had failed in the worst possible way. Closed his eyes and remembered how it started. The Earth Defense Force had sent their best ship, the Horizon, to make first contact with the Empire. Everyone was nervous but hopeful. The controlled 73 star systems. They were powerful, advanced, and had never lost a war. Earth needed allies, not enemies. Dr. Han had prepared for months. She knew everything about culture, or at least everything that could be learned from their public broadcasts. She had written speeches. She had prepared gifts. She had even learned a few words in their language, and his security team were just there to look official and keep everyone safe. They should have known something was wrong the moment they entered the throne room. The queen sat on a throne made of black crystal that seemed to drink the light around it. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes were silver, and she wore armor that moved like liquid metal. Behind her stood 12 warriors in crimson armor. They were huge, at least 8 feet tall, and they stood perfectly still like statues. The Crimson Sentinels, the elite guards who had never been defeated in battle, had stepped forward with a smile. She had offered Earth's friendship. She had spoken about trade and peace and mutual respect. She had been so careful with every word. The Queen had laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who found something deeply amusing and deeply stupid at the same time. The entire court had joined in. Hundreds of nobles had filled the hall with mocking laughter that echoed off the crystal walls. "You offer friendship," the Queen had said. Her voice was like ice breaking. "You arrive in a ship that barely crosses the void. You bring weapons that could not harm a child. You speak of respect as if you have anything we might want." She had leaned forward, her silver eyes gleaming. "Your species exists because we have not yet decided to end it. That is the only truth that matters." Had tried again. She had explained about Earth's resources, about humanity's creativity, about what cooperation could achieve. Had watched his friend pour her heart into those words, trying to build a bridge with nothing but hope and determination. The Queen had cut her off with a wave of her hand. "I grow bored of this. Your world will surrender within one solar cycle. You will provide soldiers for our armies, workers for our factories, and subjects for our experiments. In return, we will allow your species to continue existing." The Queen had smiled then, showing teeth that were just slightly too sharp. "This is more mercy than we usually offer." Had felt something hot, an angry rise in his chest. He had stepped forward before he could stop himself. "No," he had said. The entire room had gone silent. It was the kind of silence that felt heavy, like pressure building before a storm. The Queen had stared at him as if he had just spoken in a language she did not understand. "What did you say?" she had asked quietly. "I said no." Had kept his voice steady even though his heart was pounding. "Earth will not surrender. We came here in peace, but we will not bow to threats. If you want war, you will have it." For a long moment, no one had moved. Then the Queen had started to laugh again, but this time there was anger underneath it. "Commander," she had called. One of the Crimson Sentinels had stepped forward. Even among the other massive warriors, he was impressive. His armor was darker than the others, and his helmet had markings that suggested high rank. "Make an example of these insects," the Queen had ordered. What happened next was fast and brutal. Security team had 7 people. They were trained, armed, and ready. It had not mattered. The Sentinels moved like lightning in a bottle. They were faster than anything human, stronger than seemed possible, and their armor shrugged off bullets like rain. 3 of his team died in the first 30 seconds. The others fought hard, but it was like fighting a natural disaster. You could not win. You could only survive or die. Had managed to get behind him. He had emptied his weapon into his chest, and watched the rounds bounce off harmlessly. Then a massive hand had closed around his throat and lifted him off the ground. "You die last," had said. His voice sounded like grinding stone. "You will watch your companions fall. You will understand your mistake. Then you will beg for the mercy of death." But had done something unexpected. She had pulled out a small device from her pocket and thrown it at the ground. It was an emergency beacon, military grade, designed to be found. White light had exploded through the room, blinding everyone for just a moment. In that moment, Wu, their engineer, had grabbed and run, had heard them escape into the corridors. He had heard the guards chasing them. He had hoped they would make it. Then had thrown him into a wall hard enough to crack stone, and everything had gone dark. When woke up, he was in this cell. That was 3 days ago. Since then he had been given water but no food. Guards came by sometimes to look at him like he was an animal in a zoo. Some laughed, some just stared. Tomorrow, they had told him, he would be brought before the queen again. Tomorrow he would die in front of the entire court. Sat down on the cold floor and looked at his hands. They were shaking slightly. He was scared. He would not lie to himself about that. But underneath the fear was something else, something stubborn and hard like a stone in his chest. The queen thought humans were weak. She thought one show of force would make Earth surrender. She thought wrong. Even if he died tomorrow, even if and were captured, even if Earth fell, someone needed to show these aliens that humans did not break easily. Someone needed to prove that humanity was worth more than this contempt. Stood up and started doing push-ups. His body hurt. His ribs were probably cracked. It did not matter. If tomorrow was his last day, he would face it on his feet. The purple sun set outside his cell. Darkness came, and prepared to meet his death without bowing. The throne room was filled with thousands of. They sat on floating platforms that rose in circles around the central floor, creating an arena that reached toward the crystal ceiling high above. Every noble in the capital had come to watch the human die. 2 guards dragged through the massive doors. His hands were bound behind his back with energy cuffs that burned cold against his wrists. They forced him to walk across the polished black floor toward the queen's throne. The crowd watched in silence, waiting for the show to begin. Kept his head up. His body ached from the beating 3 days ago, but he had slept well last night. He had made peace with dying. That gave him a strange kind of freedom. The guard stopped 10 feet from the throne and kicked the back of his legs, dropped to his knees hard. The impact sent pain shooting up his spine, but he did not cry out. Queen looked down at him with those cold silver eyes. She looked almost bored. "Lieutenant of Earth," she said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "You stand accused of defying the Empire. You insulted your betters. You threatened war against a power you cannot hope to defeat. For these crimes, the punishment is death." The crowd murmured in approval, said nothing. The queen leaned forward slightly. "However, we are not without mercy. I will offer you one chance. Bow your head, speak the words of surrender, pledge that your world will serve the Empire forever. Do this, and I will grant you a swift and painless death. Your body will be returned to your ship. Your species will know you died with some dignity." She paused, letting the offer hang in the air. "Refuse, and you will face the Crimson Trials. 3 challenges against my greatest sentinels. No one has survived even the first trial. You will die slowly, in pain, as an example to anyone who thinks they can defy authority." The crowd was completely silent now. Everyone watched the human, waiting to see him break. Lifted his head and looked directly at the queen. He did not look away. He did not blink. "I refuse," he said clearly. A gasp went through the crowd like wind through grass. The queen's eyes widened slightly. Somewhere in the audience, someone laughed in disbelief. "You refuse." The queen's voice was dangerous now, sharp as broken glass. "Yes," his voice was steady. "I will not bow. I will not surrender. If you want to kill me, you will have to earn it." For a moment the queen looked genuinely shocked. Then her face twisted with rage. "So be it," she hissed. "Let the Crimson Trials begin. First trial, unarmed combat. Bring forth Sentinel." The crowd erupted in excited chatter. Floating screens appeared in the air, showing different angles of the arena floor. This was entertainment for them, realized. They wanted to see him suffer. A door opened on the far side of the room. Sentinel walked through. He was massive, easily 7.5 feet tall. His body was covered in bioarmor that looked like it had grown into his skin. It was dark red, almost black, and it had a metallic sheen. His face was visible through the helmet's opening. He looked human enough, but his eyes were wrong. They were completely black, no white at all. The guards released energy cuffs and stepped back, stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. He was wearing only simple clothes. No armor, no weapons, just flesh against whatever that monster was made of. "Sentinel has killed 300 opponents in single combat," the queen announced. "He has never been wounded. He has never shown mercy." She smiled coldly at Begin. Moved. He was so fast that barely saw him. 1 second he was across the room, the next his fist was driving towards head. Threw himself sideways on pure instinct. The fist passed so close he felt the wind of it. He rolled and came up running. The crowd booed. They wanted him to stand and fight. Came after him like a hunting cat. Every movement was efficient, deadly. He was not showing off. He was simply ending a problem. Dodged 3 more strikes, each one close enough to kill if it connected. His military training was screaming at him. This was impossible. You could not fight something like this. You could only die. But something in his mind clicked, a memory from basic training. His instructor, an old veteran with scars covering his arms, had told them something important. You will face enemies you cannot beat. When that happens, do not fight to win. Fight to learn. Every second you survive is data. Every move they make teaches you something. Die slowly if you must, but die learning. So stop trying to win. He started trying to learn. He let drive him around the arena. He watched how the Sentinel moved. He paid attention to every detail. The bioarmor was impressive, but it was not perfect. It had joints. It had seams. Near the shoulder, where the arm connected to the body, there was a tiny gap, maybe 2 inches wide. Was getting frustrated. The human was too fast, too unpredictable. He increased his speed, becoming a blur of motion. That was his mistake. When you move that fast, you have to commit to your movements. You cannot change direction mid-strike. Had been counting the rhythm of his attacks. Left jab, right cross, left hook, spinning back fist. The pattern repeated every 12 seconds. Waited for the pattern. Left jab, right cross, left hook. The spinning back fist came at his head fast enough to take it clean off. Dropped flat to the ground. The fist whistled over him. He rolled forward inside his guard and drove his fingers toward that gap in the shoulder armor. His hand found the mark. Roared. It was a sound of pain and shock. Had hit something vital. Blood, dark purple and thick, poured from the wound. The crowd went silent. Scrambled back as staggered. The Sentinel looked at his shoulder in disbelief. He had been wounded. It should not be possible. "Impossible," whispered. Then he collapsed to one knee. The poison in his own blood, designed to hurt enemies, was now working inside his own body through the wound. The bioarmor had no defense against internal damage. Stood there breathing hard, his hand covered in purple blood. He had not killed, but he had won. The first trial was over. The silence in the throne room was absolute. Thousands of stared in shock. Their invincible warrior was on his knees, bleeding, beaten by a primitive human with no weapons and no armor. Queen stood up slowly. Her face was pale, her hands gripping the arms of her throne so hard the crystal cracked. "Get him out of my sight," she whispered. "Now." Guards rushed forward and dragged away. As they pulled him toward the prison cells, he looked back at the queen. She was staring at him with something he had not seen before. Fear. The door slammed shut behind him. Collapsed against the wall of his cell, his body finally giving in to the pain and exhaustion. But a small smile crossed his face. They could be hurt. They could be beaten. They were not gods. They were just warriors who had never faced anyone desperate enough to find their weakness. And had 2 more trials to learn even more. Deep beneath the palace, in the research pits where they kept their most dangerous specimens, Dr. Han was trying not to panic. The cell was small and dark. The walls were some kind of organic material that felt warm and slightly damp to the touch. She had been here for 3 days, ever since Wu had sacrificed himself so she could escape. The guards had found them in the maintenance tunnels, had pushed her into a ventilation shaft, and then fought to buy her time. She had heard his screams echoing through the ducts as she crawled away. But they had caught her anyway. They always did. Now she sat in darkness, waiting for whatever experiments they had planned. She had seen other cells on the way in, things that had once been living creatures but were now just twisted shapes that moaned in the dark. She did not want to become that. A sound made her look up. The cell door was opening, but no guards came through. Instead, a figure crawled inside quickly and quietly. The door sealed behind them. A familiar voice whispered, "Could not believe it, you are alive." Barely. Wu moved closer. Even in the dim light could see he was hurt badly. His face was bruised and he moved like his ribs were broken. "I got lucky. They threw me in the waste disposal chute. It dumped me into the lower levels. I have been hiding and learning the layout." "How did you find me?" "I hacked their security system. It is surprisingly easy when you are just trying to read data, not control anything." Pulled out a small device from his pocket. It was one of their scanners, battered but still working. "I have been mapping the palace. I found something important, something that changes everything." He activated the scanner. Images appeared in the air between them, holographic data stolen from the computers. "Look at this," said. "This is their genetic profile. The Sentinels, the warriors, all of them. They have been engineered for centuries. Strength, speed, healing, everything." "I knew that," said. "Everyone knows they are enhanced." "Yes, but look closer." Zoomed in on a section of the DNA structure. "See this? They have removed all genetic variation. Every Sentinel is almost identical. They have bred for perfection, but perfection is a trap. No variation means no adaptation. No adaptation means vulnerability." Studied the data. She was not a geneticist, but she understood biology. They have been winning for so long that they never needed to evolve. They just keep making the same perfect warrior over and over. Exactly, and here is the other thing, pulled up more data. The myth of invincibility. I accessed their historical records. The Sentinels have lost battles before. Not many, but it happened. Every time they erased the records. They killed the warriors who lost. They killed the witnesses. They built a legend that could not be questioned. "Fear," whispered. "They control their empire through fear. If people believe the Sentinels cannot be beaten, they never try." "Until now," smiled, though it looked painful. "I have been monitoring the broadcasts, survived the first trial. He wounded, the entire empire watched. The myth is cracking." Felt hope for the first time in days. Where is now? Back in the prison cells above ground, they are preparing for the second trial tomorrow. The expression turned serious. "It will be worse than the first. The Queen is angry and scared. She will send 3 Sentinels this time. Cannot win against 3. Then we need to help him." "I was thinking the same thing," held up the scanner. "I can access some palace systems from here. Not much, but enough to cause problems. If we time it right, we can give an advantage." Thought quickly, what kind of advantage? "The second trial is in the palace labyrinth. It is a massive maze beneath the throne room. They release the prisoner at one end and the Sentinels at the other. It is designed to be a hunt. But if I can access the environmental controls, I can change things. Move walls, shut down sections, create confusion. They will know someone is helping him. I know, but what are they going to do? Kill us? Laughed, then winced in pain. We are already dead, might as well make it count. Nodded, do it, give every chance we can. There is one more thing, pulled up a final image. I found out where our ship is, the horizon. They impounded it in the military spaceport. If we can get there, if we can get a message out, Earth will know what happened here. They will know that can be fought. That is a long way from here. I know, but it is our mission. We came here to make contact. We did that. Now we need to make our report. Looked at this brave engineer who should have been safe back on Earth, designing engines and solving problems, not bleeding in an alien dungeon. How do we get out? I do not know yet, but I have an idea. Started working on the scanner. First, we help survive tomorrow, then we figure out the rest, one step at a time. Far above them, in a cell with a window to the stars, was preparing for the second trial. A visitor came to his cell that night. The guards opened the door and a young woman entered. She was different from the others. Her armor was lighter, marked with symbols that suggested she was a scholar, not a warrior. My name is Aura, she said quietly. I study other species. I have learned about your people. Stood but kept his distance. Why are you here? To warn you. Aura glanced at the door nervously. Tomorrow's trial is designed to break you, 3 sentinels in the labyrinth. They will not fight you one at a time. They will hunt you as a pack. You cannot win. Then I will lose. You do not understand. Aura stepped closer. The Queen is afraid of you. The entire court is talking about what you did too. You showed weakness in our warriors. You made people doubt. That is dangerous. Good. Aura shook her head. You still do not understand. The Queen controls 73 worlds, billions of beings. They all obey because they believe resistance is impossible. You are teaching them differently. If you survive tomorrow, if you keep fighting, you will inspire rebellion. Is that a bad thing? For the Queen, yes. For the conquered peoples. Aura's silver eyes met his. Maybe not. I have watched the recordings of your world. Humans fight even when they should surrender. Humans keep trying even when logic says they should stop. It is foolish. It is irrational. She paused. It is also remarkable. Why are you telling me this? Because I am tired of watching my queen rule through fear. Because I have studied 30 different species and all of them have stories about courage and defiance and hope. They used to have those stories too before we decided we were perfect. Aura turned to leave, then stopped. The labyrinth has blind spots in the sensor coverage. The northern quadrant near the water processing area. If you can reach it, the sentinels will lose track of you for a few minutes. Use that time wisely. She left before could respond. Sat down slowly. People were helping him. His friends were alive, somewhere in this massive palace, and even some of them were starting to question their empire. Maybe he could not win the trials. Maybe he would die tomorrow. But he was not alone. And if his death inspired others to stand up, to fight back, to believe that they could be resisted, then maybe it would mean something. He lay down on the cold floor and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would run through a maze while 3 killers hunted him. Tomorrow he would probably die. But tonight allowed himself to hope. The palace labyrinth stretched for miles beneath the capital. It was a maze of corridors carved from black stone, filled with traps and dead ends. The walls could move, controlled by the palace computer. The floor could open into pits. Water could flood entire sections in seconds. It was where the sent prisoners they wanted to watch suffer. Stood at the starting gate, breathing slowly, preparing his mind. They had given him simple cloth shoes and basic clothing. No weapons, no tools, just him against 3 sentinels somewhere in the darkness ahead. The crowd above watched through floating screens. Thousands of eyes. The queen sat on her throne, her face like carved ice. A horn sounded, the gate opened. Ran. He had no plan except to survive as long as possible. The corridor stretched ahead, lit by dim blue lights. He took the first turn, then the second, moving deeper into the maze. Behind him, somewhere, 3 killers were being released. He needed to find that northern quadrant Ara had mentioned, the blind spot in the sensors. It was his only advantage. Ran for what felt like an hour but was probably only minutes. His lungs burned. His legs ached. He took random turns, trying to be unpredictable. Then he heard it. A roar that echoed through the stone corridors. They had found his trail. Pushed harder, his feet slapping against the stone. He turned a corner and almost fell into a pit that had not been there before. The walls were moving, changing the maze. Someone was controlling it. He hoped it was. Another roar, closer this time. Glanced back and saw movement in the shadows. A massive shape running on all fours like an animal. One of the sentinels. Grabbed a loose stone from the ground and threw it down a side passage, making noise. Then he went the opposite direction, moving silently now. Behind him, he heard the sentinel take the bait and charge down the false trail. Good, divide them, make them hunt separately. He found a junction where water was flowing from the walls, creating a small stream on the floor. He stepped into it and followed it, letting the water hide his scent and footprints. The stream led him through a narrow passage that opened into a larger chamber. The chamber had pipes running along the ceiling and walls. Water processing, just like Ara had said. This might be the blind spot. Heard voices echoing through the maze. The sentinels were communicating, coordinating their search. He needed to slow them down. He jumped and grabbed one of the pipes. It was hot but not burning. He pulled himself up and used his weight to bend it. The pipe groaned and cracked. Water began spraying from the break, flooding the chamber floor. Moved to another pipe and did the same thing. Then another. Soon the entire chamber was filling with water, and it was flowing back into the corridors. In the palace above, Wu watched through his stolen access terminal. He saw what was doing and smiled. Smart. Flood the lower sections. Make the sentinels' armor work against them. That heavy bio-armor would slow them down in water. Started typing commands. He closed certain passages, forcing the water to flow in specific directions. He opened others, creating currents. He was turning the labyrinth into a trap for the hunters. But the palace security system noticed the intrusion. Alarms started going off. Guards were coming. Said urgently, "We have maybe 5 minutes before they find us. We need to move now." Nodded. They had been preparing for this. She had used her medical knowledge to create a weak acid from the biological waste in their cell. It was not strong, but it was enough to weaken the door lock. They kicked the door together. It burst open. Guards were already running down the corridor toward them, and ran the other way, deeper into the research pits. In the labyrinth, was waist-deep in water when the first sentinel found him. The warrior was huge, his armor gleaming even in the dim light. He moved through the water slowly but steadily, his black eyes locked on. "You cannot run forever, human," the sentinel said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "I am Sentinel Vex. I have hunted prey across 50 worlds. You are already dead, you just do not know it yet." Did not waste breath on words. He grabbed one of the broken pipes and pulled it free from the wall. It was heavy, 6 feet long, made of metal. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. Vex laughed. "You think that will help?" He charged through the water, swung the pipe with everything he had. It connected with Vex's helmet, ringing like a bell. The sentinel's head snapped to the side, but he did not fall. He just stopped and looked at with something like respect. "Good hit," Vex said. Then he grabbed the pipe and tore it from his hands like taking a toy from a child. "My turn." The sentinel's fist came at its face, ducked under it and drove his shoulder into Vex's midsection. It was like hitting a wall, but he kept pushing, using the water for extra resistance against the sentinel's movements. They both went under. The water was murky and dark, could barely see. He felt Vex's hands grabbing for him. One hand closed around his ankle and pulled, was dragged backward deeper into the water. He could not breathe. His lungs were screaming. Then he remembered something. The bioarmor was integrated into their skin. It needed oxygen too. If he could keep Vex underwater long enough, the armor would start to fail. Stopped fighting. He went limp. Vex pulled him closer, probably planning to hold him under until he drowned. But still had one advantage. He was smaller, more flexible. He twisted in the water, wrapping his legs around Vex's neck. The sentinel thrashed, trying to throw him off, held on, squeezing with all his strength. They both needed air. It was a contest of who would break first. His vision started to go dark. His lungs felt like they were on fire, but he did not let go. Vex's thrashing became weaker. The bioarmor was shutting down, pulling oxygen from the sentinel's blood to keep itself alive. It was killing its own host. Finally, Vex went limp. Let go and kicked toward the surface. He broke through the water, gasping, coughing, alive. Below him, Vex floated face down, unconscious or dead, did not wait to find out. He pulled himself out of the water onto a higher platform, just as two more sentinels entered the chamber. They saw their fallen companion and stopped. For the first time, saw uncertainty in their movements. "He beat Vex," one of them whispered. "Impossible," the other said, but his voice shook. Stood there, dripping water, bleeding from a dozen cuts, barely able to stand. But he met their eyes. "Come on then," he said. "Who is next?" Above in the throne room, the crowd was in chaos. The impossible was happening again. A human with no weapons and no armor had defeated another sentinel. The screens showed everything. There was no hiding it. Queen stood up, her face twisted with rage and fear. "In this," she commanded, "flood the entire labyrinth, drown them all." But before the order could be carried out, something new appeared on the screens. A broadcast, unauthorized, coming from inside the palace systems. It showed images from the research pits, the experiments, the conquered people's suffering, the truth about the empire. And it showed the genetic data had found, the evidence that the sentinels were not invincible, that they had weaknesses, that they had been defeated before. His voice came through the speakers, calm and clear. "People of the Empire," she said, "you have been lied to. They are not gods. They are just warriors who got lucky and decided to make fear their weapon. But fear only works if you believe in it. Stop believing. Start fighting." The broadcast spread across the Empire. 73 worlds saw it at once. And on those worlds, in cities and camps and prisons, people started to stand up. The Queen screamed orders, but it was too late. The rebellion had begun. In the labyrinth faced the last two sentinels. He was exhausted, injured, barely conscious. But he was still standing. And sometimes that was enough. The throne room had become a war zone of information. Screens everywhere showed the same scenes. Rebellions breaking out across 73 worlds. The conquered peoples rising up. Garrisons under attack. The empire that had stood for centuries was cracking apart in real time. Queen stood frozen, watching her perfect world collapse. In the labyrinth below, the two remaining sentinels stared at. They had just received new orders through their communication links, orders that made no sense. "Stand down," one of them said slowly. He sounded confused. "What?" his companion asked. "The Queen orders us to stand down. Bring the human to the throne room, alive." Did not understand either, but he was not going to argue. His legs were shaking. He could barely stand. If they had attacked together, he would have lost. The sentinels approached him carefully, as if he might explode. One of them offered his arm for support, stared at it for a moment, then accepted. He could not walk on his own anymore. They brought him up through the maze, through corridors that seemed endless, until they emerged into the throne room. The place was chaos. Nobles were shouting at each other. Some were demanding the broadcasts be stopped. Others were calling for martial law. A few were already leaving, probably planning to flee before their worlds turned against them. The queen saw enter and raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. "Of Earth," she said. Her voice was like ice, but there was something underneath it, something broken. "You have survived the second trial. By our law, you have earned the right to face the third trial, the final challenge." Stood as straight as he could. "Then bring it, I am ready." "No." The queen descended from her throne. She walked toward him slowly. The crowd watched in stunned silence. "You are not ready. You can barely stand. If I send you to face now, you will die in seconds. There will be no honor in it. No lesson learned. It would be meaningless." She stopped 5 feet from him. "But that does not matter anymore, does it? You have already won. Not the trials, not the fights, but something bigger." She gestured to the screens showing the rebellions. "You showed the Empire that we could bleed. You proved that resistance was possible. And now everything I built is falling apart." Said nothing. He was too tired to gloat. The queen turned to face her court. "Bring me Dr. Han and Engineer Wu, alive and unharmed." 10 minutes later, guards brought them in. Had cuts on her face and her clothes were torn, but she was alive. Could barely walk. The guards had to carry him, but he was smiling. "You three," the queen said, looking at the humans. "You came here with peace offers. I rejected them. I thought you were weak. I thought one show of force would make your species bow." She laughed, but it was a bitter sound. "I was wrong. Humans are not weak. They are too stupid to know when they are beaten." "Or too brave to care," Ara said quietly. She had appeared at the edge of the throne room, watching. The queen glared at her scholar, but did not disagree. "The Empire is falling," the queen continued. "Right now, on 60 of my 73 worlds, rebellions are in progress. My garrisons are holding, but barely. If this continues, there will be civil war. Billions will die. The Empire will tear itself apart." "Then let it fall," said. His voice was rough but clear. "You built it on lies and fear. It deserves to fall." "Perhaps." The queen walked back to her throne but did not sit. "But I am not ready to watch everything burn, so I will offer you a deal, not as conqueror to conquered, as one leader to another." She touched a control on her throne. A holographic document appeared in the air. It was covered in writing in multiple languages, including English. "A treaty," she said. "Peace between the Empire and Earth. Trade agreements. Technology exchange. Mutual defense pacts. And freedom for any of the conquered species that wish to leave the Empire." Stared at the document. "You are serious." "I do not have a choice. My sentinels are the best warriors in the galaxy, but they cannot be everywhere at once. If every world rebels at the same time, I cannot hold them. Better to give them what they want and maintain relationships than lose everything to war." "What about the conquered peoples, the ones you experimented on, the ones you enslaved?" The queen's jaw tightened. "Freedom, reparations, punishment for those who committed crimes." She looked directly at, "including my own people. There will be trials, there will be justice." "Why?" Stepped forward. "Why are you doing this now?" "Because that human showed me something." The queen pointed at. "He showed me that perfection is a trap. My sentinels never lose because I never let them fight anything that could beat them. I controlled every variable. I eliminated every threat before it could become dangerous. I created an empire where failure was impossible." She paused, looking around her throne room. "But a system that cannot fail is a system that cannot adapt, cannot learn, cannot grow. You humans fail constantly. You lose battles, you make mistakes, but you keep trying, you keep adapting, and somehow, impossibly, you survive." Ara spoke up again. "The queen asked me to study your species more carefully. I found something interesting. Humans have a saying, 'What does not kill you makes you stronger.' They have no such saying. We eliminated everything that could make us stronger by challenging us." The queen nodded. "So, here is my offer. Sign the treaty. Your people go free. The rebellions stop. We rebuild the empire as a federation of equals instead of a hierarchy of fear. Or refuse and we have war. War that will kill billions on both sides. War that neither of us can truly win. Looked at and they both nodded. The decision was his. I am just a lieutenant, said. I cannot sign treaties for Earth. But you can recommend it to your leaders. You can tell them the truth about what happened here. You can tell them they are willing to change. The Queen's silver eyes met his. Or you can tell them we are monsters who must be destroyed. The choice is yours. Thought about everything that had happened. The deaths of his security team, the experiments in the research pits, the suffering of 73 conquered worlds. But he also thought about Ara, who wanted change. About Invex, warriors who had lost but survived, learning humility. About a queen who could admit she was wrong. I will recommend the treaty, said finally. But with conditions. The trials stop. The Sentinels become protectors, not conquerors. And Earth gets a real say in how this new federation works. We are not joining your empire. We are building something new together. The Queen considered this. Then she nodded. Acceptable, let it be done. She touched the document, signing it with her genetic code. Then she handed a small device to. This is your signature authorization. Take it to your leaders. Let them decide Earth's future. Took the device. His hand was shaking. He had come here expecting to die. Instead, he had started a revolution and ended a war. There is one more thing, the Queen said. The third trial. By law, you have earned the right to face it. I cannot take that away without breaking my own rules. Then I will face it. No, the Queen smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile, but it was genuine. You will face it when you are ready, when you have healed, when it is a real test, not an execution. Return in 1 year if you wish. Face then. Show him what you have learned. Show him what humans can do when they are at their best. Understood. The trials were not about killing him anymore. They were about proving something, to himself and to the Empire. I will return, he promised. The Queen clapped her hands once. Then it is settled. Guards escort our guests to their ship, provide medical care, give them full honors. As and were led away, the Queen sat down on her throne. She looked exhausted. Ara approached her carefully. You did the right thing, my Queen. I did the only thing, the Queen corrected. That human taught me something important. True strength is not refusing to fall. It is standing back up after you do. She looked at the screens showing the rebellions. Now we all get to learn that lesson. 3 days later, the Earthship Horizon lifted off from the capital. Stood in the medical bay, bandaged but alive, watching the planet shrink behind them. Do you think they will really change? Asked beside him. I do not know, admitted. But they have a chance. We gave them a choice instead of just fighting until everyone was dead. Sometimes that is all you can do. Appeared in the doorway, leaning on a cane. Earth is going to lose their minds when we tell them what happened. We went for first contact and came back with a treaty that freed 73 worlds. We did not free them, said quietly. They freed themselves. We just showed them it was possible. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, heading home. Behind them, the Empire was changing. Some worlds accepted the new Federation. Others chose independence. It would take years to rebuild what fear had destroyed. But for the first time in centuries, the conquered peoples had hope. And across the galaxy, a new phrase entered common language. When someone faced impossible odds but refused to give up, people said they had the human variable. That unpredictable, irrational, wonderful refusal to accept that something could not be done. Would return in 1 year to face the final trial. He would fight the eternal, and win or lose it would not matter. Because he had already proven the only thing that needed proving. That humans do not break. They bend, they adapt, they survive. And sometimes, impossibly, they win.